Hello, welcome back to Dad Puzzles, where we dive into everything fatherhood. And today I'm really thrilled to welcome Brad Baldrige. He's a leading expert in college financial planning. And also he's the founder of Taming the High Cost of College. He has dedicated his career to helping families navigate the complex world of college without breaking the bank. So his wealth of knowledge will uncover the strategies that every dadpreneur need to know so that they can align their business growth with the financial goals of the family. So please, my friend, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. We are very happy to have you here, sir. Can you tell a little bit about you, like where are you from? What led you to doing what you're doing, my friend?
Yeah. So I'm in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, although I work with people all over the US. And I started out as a financial advisor. Still am a financial advisor, but I built a specialty around what I call late stage college planning. So late stage college planning is you've got high school kids and you're trying to figure it all out. So, early stage is you've got a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old or, hey, we're pregnant. And it's like, should we save some money for college? Which is all good, right? And I encourage people to do the early stage.
Right.
But even if you do a great job early stage, there's a lot more to do at late stage, right? So once you have kids in high school, now you're visiting colleges and filling out financial aid forms and trying to figure out how to pay for it all and pick a college and a major. And there's a lot going on. And if you did a great job early stage, then you have a big pile of money to pay for college. Great. Most people didn't do a great job early stage, so they don't have the big pile. You might have some, but no matter what, you got to figure it all out because most parents so far are saying, well, we're going to make college work somehow. We just not sure how. And that's where I tend to get involved and help families figure it all out.
Amazing. And you are needed because you mentioned even if you're prepared, you still have major surprises coming up again. So what you're offering to us is very useful. So thank you so much for doing what you do.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Yes, sir. My initial goal has been let's just make fatherhood better. At some point, I realized also there's a major problem that is some people that they don't have actually to discuss and understand these topics because they are busy working. They have to make, ends meet and it's very hard out there with careers and such. I started this system that is there designed to help them to achieve that and also grow and scale their business while prioritizing the family. Because a lot of times when we talk like this and people they're working all day, every day, they don't even have time for plays, and the weekends they're tired, they're trying to catch up with rest. We are not going to be useful, my friend. So I hope this program is going to be very helpful to people, and I think is aligned with what you're doing because then we can empower people to do better in their finances. So thank you so much for really doing this. How can we as parents integrate our careers and also meeting the financial demands of the college years?
Right. Yeah. So, college we've all heard the rumor, college is expensive and it's continued to grow and get more and more expensive. And we've also heard that college is worth it. And in most cases, it probably is, but there are exceptions because the price has gone higher and higher. When I went to college many moons ago, there wasn't nearly as a percentage, there was a smaller percentage of students that actually went on to college than what there is today. There was, the career paths were much more lucrative potentially.
Right.
So now, but I think one of the things that kind of messed things up is when we started saying, well, everybody needs to go to college, which I think is not accurate, right?
Want real results that last? Stop wasting time on quick fixes. A no-fat approach to sustainable fitness, radiant health, and mental well-being is your roadmap to lasting transformation. Learn how to fuel your body, move with joy, and cultivate mental strength, all without the restrictive rules. Start your journey to sustainable success. Download your guide today.
There's certainly lots of kids that should go to college, but there's a few that shouldn't.
Right.
What we really need, instead of saying college for everyone, what we really need to say is education for everyone.
All right.
And that education doesn't have to be college. It could be the school of hard knocks. It could be tech school. It could be apprenticeship. It could be, getting some sort of training and working. There's a lot of certificate programs. There's all kinds of ways that you can further your education. And for some, it would be just go do it and continue to grow while working. So there's no right or wrong. And I think that's kind of the first step for many families is to understand, while college is a great goal and it helps a lot of kids, great next step.
Right.
it's not right for everyone. So where it's not a good fit, you need to understand what the alternatives are. And where it's a good fit, well, then you should pursue it. But I think what happens is there's a certain population where college is a great fit and they know it and they're going to do it and they're going to be successful kind of no matter what happens. And then there's some kids where college is not a good fit and they know it and they're going to pick a different path and that'll be great. But I think for the kids that are kind of in the middle, where doing the right college at the right time in the right way will steer them in the right direction. But if they don't, they go the wrong direction and then they end up dropping out or whatever. And that's the scary statistic, right? That there's a whole lot of people that have some college and they never quite finished. And I was at my high school class reunion many years ago now already, but I'm talking to someone that I, was a friend in high school, but I hadn't talked to in 20 years. And he had gone to college for 3.5 years, but never graduated. And he had all the college debt, but he didn't have the degree. That's not helping anyone.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think this is definitely a big mind shift for a lot of families. So once people accept the reality of what you just mentioned, I think it will make everything easier for people that are doing their own business. I'm trying to focus more on the entrepreneurs, for instance, or like moms and dads. How can they aim simultaneously to grow their business and also to save on their future college expense? Because this is tough because, I think as an entrepreneur, a lot of times the cash flow and everything is not the same as when you're being employed or you're doing much better financially. So how can we do better, my friend?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So if you look at college planning in general, there's things that all families are going to do, right? So you're probably going to visit colleges. The student's going to have to do applications and testing and all that process. And then, so the student has their jobs, right? Which is, what do I want to be when I grow up? Put up the good grades, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the things that the parents do, which is, will we qualify for need-based aid? Will we qualify for merit aid? Should we be saving and investing? How much can we budget for college? Are we going to pay for it all? Are we going to pay for some of it? That stuff. And then there's the things that parents and students do together, which is visit the colleges, come up with a testing plan, decide how much we're going to work on scholarships and some of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So everybody has their role. Now, once you throw entrepreneurship in there and business ownership and rental property and that type of thing, well, now there's an extra layer of complexity. Because financial aid is based on your income and your assets, as an example. Well, if you have a typical job with a typical retirement plan, there's not a lot of things that you can change, right? Your salary is your salary and it's going to change. It's going to be the same year over year. But if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, rental owner, you have control over when and how you get paid.
Right.
And you have control over which benefits you're going to pay. And you can hire the kids into the business. So there's a lot of strategies that you can use on top of all the normal stuff. Now you have an extra layer, right? Of, well, should I hire the kids in the business? And if I do, what do I pay them? And does it make sense? And what about tuition reimbursement plans? And then should I intentionally make my income lower or higher? Or what should I do? Which years count and which years don't? And so there's all that type of thing that what entrepreneurs need to deal with, that a typical employee is going to say, well, my salary is going to be the same every year with a little bit of a raise for inflation. And if I'm lucky, maybe there's a promotion coming, but I'm not going to not get paid. I'm not going to say, well, keep the money because it'll mess up my financial aid. That doesn't make sense. So in general, entrepreneurs have a little more work to do. And then they also might have some challenges around, as you mentioned, cash flow. I've got my capital is right now invested in my projects or my business or whatever. Maybe I should borrow for college and pay it back later. And other times it makes sense to, I've had parents like, well, we have this duplex that we bought when the kids were little with the goal of selling it once they're in college to help pay for college. And then sometimes that works out, right? But I've seen situations where they were going to sell the duplex once the kids were in college and they realized that it's cash flowing so well and it's such a good investment, they don't really want to let it go. So they redo the plan and they come up with they use the rent to pay for college instead of selling the business or selling the real estate. So I think that's the challenge with entrepreneurs is there's a little bit more unknown, a little harder to plan. And you just need to commit and say, well, this is what we're going to do to help pay for college. and, got to push to be the successful entrepreneur.
Right.
So that you can afford to pay for college or understand how the need-based aid programs work and merit aid and that type of thing. So the entrepreneurship, like I said, is an extra complexity. Similar complexities arise from divorce and blended families because it gets confusing now on who's going to be on the financial aid forms. Is it going to be mom or dad, or how does that work?
Right.
If you receive an inheritance, that sudden money can change your taxes. It can change how you fill out financial aid forms. Having more money to pay for college is not a bad thing, but sometimes you end up spending it all on college when you'd rather use it for other goals.
Right.
So making sure you don't blow up need-based aid and other things and spend the inheritance wisely. Having students that are athletes complicates things. Now you have to understand that process.
Right.
Having a high-achieving kid who can win a bunch of scholarships at some schools, but wants to go potentially to a very elite school.
Right.
Now understanding how Harvard and Yale work compared to your local state school. Kids that are, far and wide just make your life more complicated. If you're saying, well, we're going to go to one of the colleges is within a 2-hour drive of where we live,
right,
that's easier to handle than saying, well, we're going to have to fly to Texas to look at some schools, and then we're going to fly to California, and then we've got to go to the East Coast and look at schools and understand, and how does that compare to just your local state school?
Right.
So there's a lot of different pieces involved, and the more complex it is, the earlier you need to start, because there's going to be more to do and more to understand.
Right. Amazing. And you know what, I guess, thank you for like summarizing that, because I think, like my next question was going to be like, what would be the benefits of you being in that field of, let's say, of entrepreneurship, versus the person that is on a fixed income.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So again, you can control your income and you can control your assets. And again, if you're successful, then you've got more money to pay for school, right? If the successful entrepreneur where you're writing checks for $75,000 a year for college is no big deal because they're making good money. Well, that's obvious a good path if you can get there.
Right.
But a lot of times, a lot of entrepreneurs are, making more modest income. And now it's, their salary from their business is not much different than the salary had they worked somewhere else.
Right. And they spend even more time, trying to achieve that,
Right. Exactly. So, and obviously that's a bigger question from entrepreneurship, right? Is if I can make $100,000 being an entrepreneur, or I can go get a salary for $100,000, what's better? Well, that's a personal decision. There's certainly math and benefits and all that kind of stuff factor into it.
Right.
But also what would make us happy as far as, and how much work would it be to be an employee? How much work is it to be the entrepreneur? And what makes sense? Lots of people think they want to be an entrepreneur until they try it. And then they realize that maybe they don't want to be.
Right.
It's not right for everyone, just like college.
Thank you. That's why, most of the time, I've actually turned down some people because you need to have that qualification in the sense that, like if we share with you the systems that we have in place, is it going to be manageable for you? Is it something that is realistic for you? This,
And I think the other challenge, especially for entrepreneurs, is how much can you do yourself and how much should you do yourself? Right.
Right.
I've worked with a lot of families where, if you're an entrepreneur, if I go figure out how to increase sales by 10%, that's going to have a much bigger impact on my life long term than spending time figuring out how to pay for college.
Right.
As entrepreneurs become more successful, it's more likely that having people help them, So I work with a lot of families where it's like, well, I could figure out college. It's not rocket science. But by the time I spend all that time to figure it out and read all the internet and all that kind of stuff, I've put a lot of time into it, and my time's valuable. So I'm better off, getting a jump start on college. I'm only going to need it. I only have 2 kids. So I'm only going to need it twice. And my time is better spent in my business, or spending my time relaxing or whatever other important things can be done.
Right.
Tired of fads and frustration? Build sustainable wellness for life. Forget quick fixes that fail to deliver lasting results. Imagine feeling energized, moving confidently, and radiating health for years. Achieving true wellness isn't about exhaustion or deprivation. It's about building habits that fit seamlessly into your life. Invest in yourself today for lasting fitness, radiant health, and mental well-being. Ready to transform your life? Click here to learn more. By purchasing the book, you'll gain lifetime access to updates, newsletters, future editions, and exclusive wellness bonuses from the author. Start your journey to wellness now.
And that's always a decision that entrepreneurs are making, right? Do I do my own taxes, or do I have someone help me with it? Do I, and it kind of shifts, I'm an entrepreneur, and it shifts from I have this problem, how do I solve it, to I have a new problem. How do I find somebody that knows how to solve my problem? Because sometimes it's hard to find the person, I'd love for someone to help me with this.
Right.
Now, how do I find that person to help? And that's one of the challenges that I have around college is, when your pipes are spraying all over your basement, you go, well, I need to call a plumber. Who can help you with that.
Right.
When you say, well, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay for college for 2 or 3 kids, and we're getting close and we don't understand the game.
Right.
Well, that's something I can help you with, but you have to find me. You have to be aware of it in order to give
make
me
the
a
right
call,
stuff.
Right?
This is a very, very important information. And, because a lot of times if you do not have the right person, and when you try to go cheap and you don't get the right resource, you're not going to fix the problem. So I think, we have to not have that scarcity mindset. We have to do better than that. And also, it's very interesting. I think one of my prior guests is a couple as well. They're also, they're doing entrepreneurship. We realized something that was big for us in 2024 is really to have the help. It's good to make less profits, but everybody's winning. Than you trying to do everything, which is amazing.
And I think that's right. And that's the kind of the change in mindset. And we see this a lot now in other areas. We used to say, I need a plumber. Well, now you might say, I need a plumber who understands, old houses with plaster walls because of this particular problem. Or I need an attorney that specializes in estate planning, not any attorney, but an attorney that does this or whatever it might be. And that's where a lot of professions is out there, right? So now I'm a financial advisor that specializes in college. And I'm not a good fit if, you're dealing with a special needs child or you're dealing with, lawsuit or something. That's not, if you won the lottery, that's, there's people out there that specialize in that stuff. That's not what I do.
Right. Wow. Thank you so much, Brad. I think this is very important. I think hopefully now people can pay attention and they're deciding to really pursue these careers, like entrepreneurship. They should not really feel discouraged. They should do more, more work in terms of learning the ins and outs, like you mentioned. So that can be at their advantage, and not be stuck in, because sometimes, people, when they learn about all these things, they get discouraged and they don't follow their dreams. And sometimes at the late stage after retirement or, you still think, oh yeah, I could have done this, I could have done that, and it's too late, my friend, We we encourage people to be courageous, but also at the same time, we want them to not be stuck with the routines and not be living in their potential. So thanks so much, Brad, for really appearing on our podcast, and I'll definitely be sharing your information. How can people, let's say, is there like a particular way you want folks to find you?
Right. Yeah. So everything we do is at our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. And we've got a podcast there. We just launched the scholarship guide for busy parents. So lots of parents don't understand how scholarships work. And, everybody wants a scholarship. Of course, free money for college sounds great.
Right.
But how do you actually pursue scholarships and win scholarships? And there's different types of scholarships. There's scholarships from the colleges. There's scholarships from businesses, from charities, from all different types of college or scholarships. And it's figuring out, which scholarships are going to work for your family and then pursue the right ones. And how to do that. We've also got a financial aid calculator on our website. Help you understand, will you qualify for need-based aid or not? So that's a great resource.
Amazing.
Cost of colleges by state. So we can, You can pull down information for your state and the colleges in your state, both the public schools and the private, and not just their price tag, but what their net price is based on income. So, a typical state college costs about $30,000, let's say. But if your income is relatively low, your net cost because of aid, because of scholarships and grants and that kind of stuff, if your net cost might be $10,000, whereas if your income is higher, your net cost might be $20,000 or $30,000. And if your income is really high, you might pay full price. And understanding that, can help you target the right numbers. How much do I need to save for college? Well, the list price is $30,000, but typically for some, it might be $20,000 or $10,000 per year. And understanding that is useful. And we also have other resources, and it's a great place for families to just get started and start learning.
Right. Thank you. And a lot of times you'll be surprised. Most of the companies, they offer all these amazing programs in terms of for the future of your kids in terms of education and such, but we barely take advantage of them. Or this matching with the retirement, people do not max out on those benefits. You realize, let's say 10 years later, I could have been in a different financial situation if I had taken advantage of it. So I think the best way we can make an impact today to folks that are listening to us is you should definitely take a look at your retirement plan if you're if you're being employed, because you still can make a lot of big changes that can be helpful to you, down the road, even with the health insurance. A lot of times folks, they just trying to pay the minimum possible so I can be taken care of with my health, but they do not take advantage of things like healthcare savings and such, which is going to be really handy for you when you retire and all these things. Even before retirement, what's your experience with Uncle Sam, my friend?
Right. So there's certainly a lot of tax breaks that are associated with college. So that's part of what I help families with is, again, the entrepreneurs that set up a tuition reimbursement plan, and then they're able to, it's tax deductible to the business, tax free to the recipients. And that makes sense in some cases, not always. And then making sure you leverage your 529s. Many states will give you some benefits for 529s.
Right.
Now it's not, there's good and there's bad when it comes to understanding your choices there. You need to understand what the negatives of the 529 are as well.
Okay.
There's penalties and potentially in some cases, so you want to use them well and use them right. But again, there's lots of different opportunities that families need to take advantage of, both tax-wise and college planning.
Well, thank you so much, Brad. We definitely have to talk again. And, thank you for sharing your insights, and also kids are growing, and, the colleges are going to happen, so this is good, it's going to help us to really not only do better in our businesses, but also secure a brighter future for them. So thank you so much for doing this. And so folks, please, check out Brad's information, and we look forward to having him again in the coming episodes. And if you haven't done so, please just give us a follow, because we have a lot of new things happening at the moment, and just stay tuned. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.